Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. We're just giving people a couple of minutes just to connect to the session. We'll start shortly. Yes, more in a minute or two. Okay, guys, again, we're just giving people a couple of minutes and then we will begin. Okay, I can see more people joining. Okay, we're almost a couple of minutes past the hour, so we can make a start, and we can start with a little bit of housekeeping. So you've probably noticed that everybody is on mute. It's just so we don't get any background noise. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, there is a questions section. Just drop your question in there. Hopefully I will notice them. I still have to keep remembering to look, but I will try to get to those questions. Also, about an hour after the webinar has finished, you will receive another email that will contain the recording, so you can share that with your colleagues. But you will also get an invite for the next webinar, which I believe is happening on the 21st, and the topic for that is versioning, version control, questions, answers, top tips. It's another one of the very common topics I get asked lots of questions on, so we thought that might be useful. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is just get rid of my camera because it certainly puts me off. I'm going to share my screen, but I always like to say hello. My name's Chris. I'm from Ascertus, and I do all the training there. That's my background, training. I'm just going to share my screen. That should come through shortly. Hopefully you can see that now. If not, let me know, obviously in the questions area, but it should be coming through. Right, let's begin. So what are we here to talk about? So searching. This is one of the most common topics I get asked about when I run not just new starter training, but follow-up training. And obviously we need to find content, and we have great browsing features and sorting features and filtering features in iManage Work 10. But sometimes we can do a lot just by using the simple search. So we're going to look at performing simple searches. Top tips there. There are things happening here that you may not realize. It's important to understand what's actually happening in that area. We can also, we're going to look at how we can set the search scope to really help us to focus in on finding relevant content. I'm also going to discuss some really useful tips, how we can use wildcards and Boolean searching, proximity searching, and/or searching. You may know some of these, but you may not know you can do it at all, and it's incredibly valuable. We'll have a look at advanced search. It has a purpose. There are things we can do there that we can't do in simple search. And we can also save them. That's one of the things that we can do, so we can reuse them over and over. And there will be a question and answer section. So if you have any questions, drop them into that question section, and hopefully I'll be able to get to them. Okay. So let's begin. Without further ado, let me go to my demo version of iManage. This is all dummy data. It's what all the partners use. And let's begin at the very basics. So when we're performing a search, we obviously have the search bar at the top of the screen. Now, this is a simple search, but we've, I suppose, been spoiled by Google. Google will correct your spelling mistakes. It works out your context. It therefore delivers, hopefully, more relevant results. In iManage, this is certainly a massive improvement over what we had in the older versions of iManage, but it's still not as smart as Google. So we need to give it a hand. So when we type in a keyword and press enter, it will perform the default search. Now we need to tell it where we want to look. Are we looking for a document, an email, a folder, a matter, or a client? And these labels might be different for you. This might be project or case. This might be work type or division. But we need to choose that right option. If we press enter, it performs the default search, which is to search by document name, which often isn't the best way to search. Okay, so we have other options available to us, but we need to understand what's actually happening here. So for example, if I want to find documents that contain the word contract, I can't just press enter. I have to go down to the keyword option. You can make that your default search. And that means when you press enter, it's always going to perform a keyword search. The keyword search will search the content of documents, but it also searches the document name and the properties and the comments. So you will get wider results. But it won't just find the word contract. There's a feature in iManage search called stemming. It finds variations of that word: contract, contracts, contracting, contractor. If you'd entered things like contracts or contractor, the stemming bit, the reduction, it actually takes it back to the base word, and then it finds the variations of the word. And that can lead to a lot of false positives, a lot more clutter here. Also, when we get search results, they're sorted by relevance. What does that mean? Well, it's based on how often that word appears in the document, of course. But also, if you're searching for multiple words, and let me use an example. Let's say this came up the other day, actually, credit agreement. When we're searching for documents that contain both those words, they both have to be present, of course. But the relevance is how often the words appear and also the proximity. So if these words appear multiple times, they will be higher up the rankings. But also if those words appear multiple times close together, they will be slightly higher in the rankings. And that's useful most of the time. But it can also lead to issues because sometimes we have very common words that frequently appear and we end up getting lots of clutter. So for this search, it limits it to 500 because it's expecting me now to use filters to make that more refined. And this system I'm using doesn't have that many documents in. You might be in an organization with millions of documents, and therefore this problem is compounded. So there are things we can do to help us along. Now, obviously, we have fantastic filters that we can use to filter those search results to make them more relevant. So we go to the filters, and these are pre-built searches. We're adding additional search layers onto that keyword search. We can filter that by date, by created or modified, by file type. Obviously, that's the key one that I use very regularly. We can filter by colleague, who created or who owns that document, and you will then see other options in this list which are specific to your organization. This is the power of the filters. We can keep the search simple and use that to focus in. Of course, we can sort those into a particular order, but remember you have this grid view. So the grid view puts everything into a separate column. You may need to make room, and then you can use the cog here to add additional columns. A lot of these won't be here by default. So you can actually click on the cog, add more columns down the left, and it's based on your company's metadata properties fields. If you see any ones that say author and then author description, it's this one you're looking for. That's the name. That might be a reference. And you can basically customize this. There's lots of empty fields and really make this grid view particularly useful for you. But what you see here will be based on what's in your system. It might be slightly different, but that then gives us lots of sort options within those results. And again, I've just happened to choose two options with the wrong options here, but still, you get the idea. So that's another option that we have, but still, we're really playing with very broad, inefficient search results. So there are some real tips here to really get the most from this search. Now, a couple of tips here is particularly searching with emails. a common question is they're looking for an email from a certain company, organization, or individual. So let's say for the sake of argument, I'm looking for emails from somebody called Chris, or a company. It could be the company is Ascertus. Now, of course, I could search the from field or the to field, but it's one or the other. And that will give me results, but that's a very specific field. The problem with that is it's based on the last email filed, what's been filed into the system. Some people only file the last email in a thread. That you might forward on an email and they're filing that forwarded email. So the email's from you, not the person you think it's from. So a good get out of jail here is to use the keyword option. The keyword option will search the content of emails, which includes all the previous threads and the display names. So it gives us a bit more flexibility here. So I could say, actually, Ascertus keyword, and actually it might be somebody called Chris Ascertus. I don't need to think about the format, anything, Chris dot or whatever. I just type the keywords I'm looking for, and that might be a bit of a get out of jail option. I've shot myself in the foot with a filter applied. Keep your eye on those. They do trip you up. I don't want to see just the last 30 days worth. I want to see everything. And that is a nice get out of jail because it's more broad as a search. It's searching the body of emails, which could include older threads that wouldn't appear in that from or to search. But you will get more results. Again, the filters, the sort options, the grid view sort options will assist you here. Now, one thing to tell you about the grid view, a recent change in the last release, I think it was in the iManage cloud, so if you're up to date completely server-wise, it was to the ability to sort by more than one column. So I haven't customized this particularly well, but you can now hold shift and sort by multiple columns. Again, I don't have a lot of data in this. Sort by subject, then by from, then by CC. You can go overboard with this. So shift click click allows you to do that multi-column sort. So this is now more useful than it was before. Now, if you're not sure what version you're on, you can check. If you're on iManage Cloud or Cloud iManage, you're probably already on the latest of the latest. If you've got things installed on premise, your organization installed it locally, you may want to check that all of these features work. It either will or it won't. So other things that we can do, we have what we call wildcards. So sometimes we're not sure of spellings. I'm looking for an email, for example, from, and I know the guy was called Smith, but I have a suspicion it might have been Smythe, not Smith. I just can't find it. And it could be for any word in any context. Rather than saying, well, is it Smith or is it Smythe? I can replace the uncertain character or characters with a question mark. Now, this is really useful for references or codes. Postcodes, company numbers, VAT numbers. Sometimes you don't get the match because the whole word is maybe a prefix and you're kind of struggling. So that can be useful. Now, that will cover both bases. And it will find the Smiths and the Smythes. And we're searching in the content, of course, not just the recipient, but what appears in the body. It's in here somewhere, but it will also search those recipient fields too. We can also search using the magic wildcard, which I'm sure many of you know, and that is the asterisk. That means replace any number of characters. And this, particularly for references, is useful. If you've got like a company VAT number, it might be prefixed, there might be letters on the end, but you just got the middle bit, the number. You can then surround it with the asterisk. Anything that, forget what happens before or after. I know it's something within a word, perhaps. It can also get you out of jail if people abbreviate things. So I might want to find all documents that have a keyword beginning with auto. So again, the asterisk replaces any number of characters, where the question mark replaces any single character. Now, some words it will find anyway. Try it without. So let me give you an example. Some of our colleagues in Germany, Scandinavia, they can spell the word contract with K's. But if we if we do that search, of course, title keyword, it will find it, but it would find it anyway if you just type contract this way. So there are certain words that are kind of built in, but it will be down the list somewhere. But you could then use that question mark when you have any doubts to cover all of those bases. So try it without first, and then if you have doubts, use those question mark or asterisk wildcards. Okay. Now the scope is important, and there is a gotcha here. So this is why I'm showing you. The scope is based on your starting location. So if you want to do a new search, it's best to click on documents or emails first. Check all of your filters aren't tripping you up before you begin. But if we know where the document or email might be, we can go into a particular location and start the process from there. So if I click into a workspace, it assumes I just want to search within that workspace. If I click into a folder, it assumes I just want to search within this folder. So straight away, the scope is refined. The client level, and for some of you, this may be work type, department, if you're not a law firm or an accountancy firm. We can go in at this level too, and we can see all of the workspaces. Whoops, I've been playing around previously. There we are. We can see all of the workspaces for this particular client. And again, the search is going to be limited to that client. It's going to be looking within these spaces. So the starting location can really limit the scope of your search. But there's a gotcha here, a real gotcha that many of you maybe haven't noticed. So I want to search for a document, and it could be an email. That's probably more commonly where we would do this. But still, same concepts apply. I want to search for a document, but in this research folder, and it has subfolders. So I'm going to search for all of the documents that contain the word Acme in the name. Nice, simple search. And we can see that it's just searching within that folder. I can expand that to search everywhere, but we make an assumption here that it's searching the subfolders within the research folder. It isn't. That's a filter option. Search scope. I didn't notice that for a long time. So, and it did confuse me before. So if you also want to include any subfolders, you have to click on the subfolders option. Now that's confusing too. Is it just searching the subfolders or the parent? It's doing both. I did some testing on this just to be sure. So we're including the subfolders. I just don't think that's as clear as it could be. That's a real gotcha. So watch out for that. If you have, again, those subfolders, just try and remember that it's one of your filterable items. Okay. Other things we can think about. Wildcards, just checking my list so I don't miss any good nuggets in here. Email keyword searching. So again, going back to that point of the from field, and we can use those wildcards quite effectively here. So if I wanted to find an email from a colleague or a contact, and I know he's called Raj, but is his email display name Raj or Rajiv? Now I could do a combo search, but that's another way where that asterisk wildcard can come into play. So it's also picking your battles as well. The more unusual the word or term, the better the results might be, but we do need to explore. And again, make sure the search scope will impact the scope of that search. You might need to click on to expand. I could pretend that I meant to do that, but I didn't. Also, check your filters. They have a bit like Lazarus. They have a habit of returning. So we need to, let me just click on that. We need to make sure we've got the right date range in view. So there are little banana skins there that trip you up regularly. It's just a good habits. So that covers both bases really in terms of the display names. That's quite a nice tip as well, I find. Now, this is where we're going to take things up a notch or two. It's still that they're useful, hopefully, but there are things you can do in this simple search that you may not be aware of. And what they're called Boolean searches. Now, anybody as old as me might remember these. You know, when the Internet kit first came out and you used search engine, your Netscape Navigator or Ask Jeeves, you had to know all of these to find anything. And Google came along and kind of took away all of the need for these operators. So we just, we've probably forgotten about them. We can use them here. Now, here's an example. I'm looking for a document that contains the word landlord or tenant. If I do two words, I'm asking it to find documents that contain both words. Now, it could be a word or a term, but it's looking for everything you enter. Also be aware there are things known as stop words. Is, and, or, it. Anything like that will be ignored. And that's the same as how Google works, so bear that in mind as well. But I'm asking it to find both words, landlord, tenant. All of these documents, 168, have both words in them somewhere, but it will also find variations, tenant, tenants. It will highlight where it found the words for context. And that's the problem. The bigger your organization, the more results you're going to get, the more clutter, the harder it is then to find that specific document. Yes, we've got the filters, but still, you're wading through perhaps hundreds of thousands of results. Actually, in this example, I don't want to find both words. I want to find either word. I'm looking for documents that contain either the word landlord or the word tenant. And this is where I can use a Boolean operator. Or we'll do either. Find a document that has landlord or tenant in the body. And that's a much broader search. When we use these operators, we have to type them in capital letters. Otherwise, it's a stop word and it will be ignored. Now, don't click on this again here. It will duplicate. The prefix is already in for keyword. Leave that there. It's really irritating. Drives me insane. And I sometimes forget to click. We sometimes have to delete everything and start again. So it's already doing a keyword search, landlord or tenant. And we get far more results, 275. And again, some of those documents will have both, but some of them may have one or the other. So, but we could say landlord and tenant, but it's doing that by default anyway. So there is a Boolean operator called and. We don't need it here. It does that by default, but that will come back later. We have a use for it. We've also got a very useful Boolean operator, not. This is one of my favorites. It's okay to have a favorite. It's not uncool at all. It's fine. Sometimes we were looking for a certain keyword, but we get far too many results, lots of types of documents that are just cluttering up the results. And we know, well, I don't need those types of documents. It could be a contract type you're looking for, a clause, and you know there are certain things that you don't need to find. So we can use the not operator to exclude them. Find documents that have the word landlord in or tenant. And remember, this could be a phrase. It doesn't have to be a single word, but it's either side of the not word. And so that will exclude documents that have the word tenant in. And now we can see we get far fewer results. It's also picking your battles, finding the right exclusion word or words can be quite useful. And that's the point. There's never going to be one way to do everything. It's about exploring. So we're going to take this up a notch or two now and introduce other combinations of these. So I'm going to clear the search. I'm going to start again, and I'm going to say I'm looking for landlord or tenant, but not guarantor. So I want to find documents that have either the word landlord or tenant within, but excluding those with the words guarantor in the body. Now, if we click this, it will work, keyword search. But there is an order in which these things are done in, typically left to right. But iManage's recommendation is to put brackets around the primary search, the thing you want it to do first. it can affect the results. You don't need, in other words, put brackets around the thing you want to do first and don't worry about how it works after that point. So I wanted to do that search first, find documents with landlord or tenant in, and the results of those then exclude guarantor. So this is called nesting. Anybody familiar with Excel formulas? Probably this looks quite familiar to you. So press enter. So now we have documents that contain either the word landlord or tenant, but not the word guarantor. And that can dramatically reduce those results again. So it takes a little practice. The key things is we enter these terms in capital letters. We can't use quotes here. So some of you will know, if we do, I don't know, service agreement, it won't necessarily find those words together. And if you want to put them together, you can add quotes around the word and it becomes a term. So it finds those two words together exactly as typed, no variations of the words. And it's a single search term. But we can't use those when we're doing this kind of search. According to iManage, I have actually tested it. It does work sometimes, but obviously it doesn't work all the time, hence the guidance. So we can nest these. Now, another example that I've seen, we might be looking for proposed or past and legislation. So this is where we might use that and option. We're looking for documents that contain a keyword with the word either proposed or past, but also the word legislation. It's just getting used to the format, really. Anything I put the key thing at first in brackets and then add things on the end. Now, there's other things we can do here. So when we're searching for people, we can search for documents by a certain person who created or owns a document. And when you click on that person, it will say which person, and that will give you a list based on, you don't need to worry about whether they created it or someone created it for them. It's their documents. But we can actually just type the @ symbol and start to type, which might be a little bit easier to, find that individual. We also have the ability to search for document numbers. You can actually just type in the hash, the pound symbol, I think it is in some countries, I think it is, the hash symbol, and you can then type in your document number and then press enter. But we can actually use this to our advantage in a search as well. So I'm looking for documents that have credit agreement in the body somewhere, but not the word invoice. Now, I've learned that I need to put brackets around this really, just to be sure. Actually, I don't. Lose my mind. Bear with me. Let me do one thing at a time. Credit agreement, but not invoice. So that's looking for both those keywords. They have to be present, not necessarily together, but I'm excluding the invoice word from the results. Okay. But sometimes we get far too many results still. And if you work for a big organization that has millions of documents, one of our clients, I think, has something like 850 million documents, this still can be a problem. And it's compounded with emails. When you're doing this kind of searching for emails, and all of this works with email keyword searches too, that's compounded 10, 20, 50 fold. And we can use the filters and we can sort, but still we're just drowning in a sea of results. So if you're looking for something that's a newer document, for example, this is ordered by relevance. It will be ordered by the number of times the words appear and how close they are, and also by date. But still, you can get things that may be really quite old that you don't want. All documents have document numbers, and they're sequential. In fact, emails do too, but yeah, you can do it for emails as well. So the next document in the system gets the next number up. So we can see with these newer documents, we're in the kind of the 86,000 range. And for, this one in 2017, it's the 40-something thousand range. So I can use that to my advantage. I want to add that in. I want to find document numbers that are greater than 60,000. We can use the Boolean operators greater, less than, greater than or equal to, and there's a couple of others, but these are the useful ones. So I want to find documents that contain the words credit and agreement, but not the word invoice, where the document number is greater than 60,000, which should in theory be newer documents. This is not an exact science, but it allows us to explore. There's only 106 results. Let's say you've still got hundreds, maybe thousands. You can tweak that number, raise it a little to get newer documents. You can actually search ranges as well. But still, I think this is probably the more practical application. And that can be really handy. We can sort by created date and edit date, but that's kind of a temporary setting. This kind of bakes it into the search. And it means we can then use our filters without impacting the sort. That can be quite useful too. Okay, just checking there were no questions. None so far, good stuff. Right, now, here's a common question I get asked. Can you perform proximity searches? I'm looking for words, but they're common words. Actually, it's the context of where they appear. It's a clause, a certain clause that I know will have certain keywords in, because I'm looking for a clause to reuse. And I just get too many results because I can't think of a word unique enough to give me a more focused set of results. So people would like to be able to search for words that are close together in certain documents, and we can define how close. So we can perform proximity searches. This feature was released in version 10.3.3, I believe. So if you're on iManage Cloud, no problem. If you're on-premise, just check what version you have. You can do that by going to your user settings here, about. As long as that number here is above 10.3 something, you should be fine. The vast majority of you will be, I'm sure, but still, just in case you try it and it doesn't work. So I'm going to try a proximity search. I'm looking for the word credit, but I want it to be near the word agreement. I don't care if it appears at the top and the bottom. I need to be in the same location, a similar location. Now, it could be credit agreement. It could be any two terms you would hope to find within a small space within a document. And the operator here is called near. Kind of makes sense, really, after the event. Now, the default is it will find those two words within 5 words of each other. So there could be up to 5 words in between. And that usually is enough for most people. Press enter and let's look at those results. And it will be here. That's a boring document. Let's try that one. All of these should be dummy documents. And we may have to go fishing here just to demonstrate the point. Remember, this could be elsewhere, but there we are. So that's together, but that's with a word in between. There may not be 5 words in between, but still, we've got a few more here. So it's showing us the context there. But we can specify how many words. If you put 0 on the end of near, it means adjacent. But you could use the quotes to do that. It might be 1 word in between. You might be looking 3 words in between. No more than 3 words in between the words credit or agreement. And by the way, it could be agreement or credit, either way. Agreement could be first or credit could be first. So that's nice. But often we're looking for it in the same paragraph. So actually there's no limit here. You could say within 50 words. That's going to give you much more accurate results if you expect 2 words to be in a single paragraph. For me, I didn't even know I could do this till recently. So it's a bit of a game changer. It's quite a recent feature, to be fair. So if we look at this one and scroll down, let's look at where it's found these. I have to wait for it to load. My Wi-Fi is struggling a little bit. There we go. So it's showing you that context now. It's quite far apart, but it is within the same kind of space. The proximity searching is a great addition to the simple search. So again, near on its own within 5 words, but you can put, and I think I tested it up to 100 words. You probably could go further. I'm not sure if there's a limit, but the whole point of it is it's proximity. You know, there's no point using it if it's probably further away, but still, it's a great feature. And again, we can combine all of these things together. So I'm going to do, let me just click here just to rerun the search quickly. I'm going to create a pretty bonkers search now just to demonstrate what's possible. So I'm going to say credit within 1 word of agreement. So I want to find the words credit, near what within one word of the word agreement. In brackets, that's what I want it to do first. But I don't want the word invoice. And I also want document numbers greater than 70,000. Now, I wouldn't do this straight away. I would build it up piece by piece. Try it simply, then add these things one at a time to see what impact it has on the results. And I could even say, if I press enter, I'm going to get results, of course, 7. I don't need to do any more, but if still you have too many results, you could say, well, I'm pretty sure it's one of my colleague Raj's documents. And this can be a bit laggy, by the way, I have to wait. That might make your brain itch a little bit now, but it's really adding, bolting on bits. The key thing here is always start simply, without all the fancy stuff. See what the results look like. If the filters, the sort options let you find it quickly, fine. If this adds a value, fine. Try it without first, and then look how many results you get. That's a manageable list to work through. But if there are thousands, you might think of what else you might need to add. In terms of filters, is it pre-built? Can you sort, arrange? Is there a field that we can add in the grid view that actually helps us to focus in? If not, we can exclude using not. Again, we can combine that with others and say that has to be with one word, but it must also have the word whatever it might be, but not the word invoice. And you might find you just get no results because you just try too hard. I have, but do it one at a time and pick your battles. So those are the proximity searches. And what this means is we have the ability to use the advanced search, but we have less need to use it if you use those. But there are things we can only perform really in the advanced search. Yeah, by the way, notice you do have your recent searches to rerun. But in advanced search, the things you can do here that you can't really do there. Obviously, we can search for documents and emails here. We can do one or the other in the simple search. So this is a real enhancement. We can also search across more than one database or library, as they were often called. And this will depend on your organization. You might just have one, but some have multiple for different countries. Some have some for admin, knowledge databases. So this can be a way of excluding or focusing that search. Just remove the database you don't care about. And then we build up. Now, often this comes with a few rows here. I just remove I start one row at a time. I'm going to start with documents, and I'm going to just take it back to the beginning. And it's really about this field. This is where we're directing this row's search. Are we looking for document name? And we can type in a document name. But now we've got the option to say it contains, so a general search, or it's an exact search, or look for documents without this word in the name, which can also be useful. The same with keyword. Now, a keyword search will search the body of a document, but it also searches the comments and the properties. So here I can focus that keyword search just at the body of a document. Contains or contains exactly or does not contain. And I can use those Boolean operators here in brackets in the same format as simple search, not, and, or. Again, remember your brackets. And again, remember to try the simple search before you put too much in. Build it up bit by bit. Then hit search, see what impact it has. So with the search results, again, we know we can personalize them. This is available in simple search. This would limit results to your recent matters. If we click on a folder or matter before we go into advanced, that option will also appear here as a focused option. To demonstrate that point, again, because it can trip you up, if you're in a matter before you go to advanced search, it assumes you want to perform an advanced search within that matter. So think about what options highlighted here. We've also got recent searches top right, so I can then very quickly rerun that search. without having to re-enter it. And we've got the details cards to turn on with our preview properties. We've got that grid view. We've got our sort options, so that same functionality. And then we can add another row and use other fields. So here we have author or operator, creator or owner separately, or both. And we can add multiple people here, which we can't do in the simple search. I know the document might be one of Raj's documents, but it also could be one of, it's a bit laggy this, you have to wait. Just be patient, let it have a think. It could be my colleague Money's document, or it could be Maggie's document. If you knew which person may have created it or own it, put everybody in. You can't add groups here, it has to be people. And that can be a real get out of jail if you're looking for an old document, but somebody in the team at some point must have done something with it. And that can limit and stream. See the impact before you move on. Remove it if you want to do something else. We can also then choose lots of things like created date, today, yesterday, specific date, before a certain date to get the newer content. Month by month, click on the month here to jump more than 1 month. Click on the year to jump back more than 1 year. Let's go to 2019, January, newer documents. So we're doing a similar thing, but it's more structured. And again, you can quite easily shoot yourself in the foot. It's before, I should have put after, that's why. Yeah, so you could still have to check. Build it up row by row. Other options here, this is very personal to your organizations. We have workspace metadata. We can do document number ranges, by the way, is between before, after, which no one ever spots. Keywords again, document types. I'm looking for a document, a spreadsheet, and it puts all the file formats in for you. Modified dates, clients. If you think it could be client or it could be work type for you, but if it's probably for the client X, somewhere within one of the matters for that client or work type, that might help you narrow down those results. But you have to be certain it's the combination of all this criteria together that will impact the results. They're not or searches, they're an and search. So people often go too crazy too quickly and they don't find anything. Put in what you're certain of, then experiment with what you think you might know. Underneath, all the other workspace metadata here is really based on your organization setup. You may not have any of these, you may have more. What's here? Can you use it? Can you leverage it to narrow down the results? It shouldn't be the primary search. It should be a way of focusing the search. Practice area might be a good one. If you have something like that in your system, it's not iManage, it's about your organization. And again, you can add multiple here. I have no idea what's going to happen now, but there we are. So advanced is good for that. We can do we can actually break down the search. We can search for documents and emails, but we can actually save searches. Now, if this is a search that I might want to run again or run regularly, I'm not sure I would in this case. It's quite a very niche search, but I can save it. But you have to save it as a folder, and you have to put that folder somewhere. So where should it go? Does it relate to a particular matter or a particular client? I mean, if it's not, you can't really put it into a matter. If you have a personal workspace, you could put it in there. If you have a department or a team workspace, you could put it in there. Maybe create a folder and add this as a subfolder. So, useful searches. So I'm going to put this into, I have no idea where I'm going to put it, to be honest. Let me put this just in a matter just for now, because I don't then have to think too hard. But it appears as a folder, and you have to have permission to create the folders, of course. Now, you need to give it a meaningful name. This search is far too complex to really give this a meaningful name. How are we going to know what's happening here? But if it's a simpler search, it could be landlord or tenant docs recent. I know what's going to happen when I click on this folder. So I would recommend doing a simpler searches, because we can then add to via the filters. And then it appears as a search folder with the magnifying glass. And as soon as I click that, it instantly reruns that search. So naming it well is important. Putting it in a location that others benefit from it, and you might want to create a folder and add a subfolder. And keeping it simple also is useful, because I often have a base search for those common terms, and then I can use the filters to add the operators and other details too. Yeah, so for documents and emails, in that dropdown, you will see a combo, title or subject, but you will then see all of the additional fields that relate to emails as well, to, from, received date, sent date, and again, think about what's in these options here and explore. I don't use advanced search much at all, hardly ever, in fact. I tend to be able to do what I want from using that simple search with those Boolean, wildcard, proximity options. And by the way, just to finish, a lot of people forget that when you're in a matter and you have lots of folders, you don't have to suffer them. You have filters. I mentioned this last week or last month. Folders is just the default view. Latest documents will show you all of the latest documents as if the folders never existed. A list of every document in every folder in chronological order, most recently edited, at the top. And then we can use the filters to then find what we're looking for if it's something simple. Emails will show us all the latest emails, regardless of what folder that they're in. And again, filters to drill down, to focus in using email filters. But all latest files will show us a combination of the two. This is a pure electronic file. Every document and email in chronological order in terms of when it was saved or when it was last edited for documents. And we may have a very, very, very big list. And we can then search within that, by the way, but you still have to choose one or the other. And again, people forget that they can do that. Remember, that will stick. You have to turn folders back on. But you can do that at the client or work type level. If I know I'm looking for a document under Acme and there are loads of matters, projects or workspaces, whatever term you may use, they're just in my way. I'm looking for the latest action. Show me the latest documents or emails at this level across all matters. And then we don't perhaps need to search so much. We can sort, we can filter at the client level, perhaps at the matter level too. So it's picking your battle. Don't just go to search thinking it's magic like Google. We do need to think it through sometimes, experiment and strategize. Okay, so custom fields. Can you search custom fields? The keyword search, I hope that's your question. The keyword search, I think searches fields C1, C2, so client matter or work type matter. And I think it's 29 and 30. Now, for many of you, that will mean nothing, but for your IT team, it will mean something. Wherever you have the parent and child fields, the keyword search will search those for documents and emails, but it also searches the comments field too. Any other custom field, you would use advanced search to drill down to, because it will be in here somewhere, I hope. But that might be something you need to explore in your environment. Do we have any other questions? Remember your friends, not, and, or, near. And remember to put things in brackets that you want it to do first. And remember to spell things right. If you spell it wrong, and remember your colleagues spell things wrong. Remember that they abbreviate things. Remember that the word contract is fairly common. Maybe there are other words that are more unique. So we have to be sneaky sometimes. But near, not, and, or, your get out of jail fill in the blanks, or the fill a single blank in. Combinations of these can really help you when you really are struggling to locate what you need to locate. And remember, for the email search, the keyword search is your friend. It's searching everywhere, but that will result in more results. Remember, the keyword search for emails also searches the content of attachments, which is a good thing, but you're going to get a lot more results. So the and or not options there will also help, and remember your filters. Okay. So I'll hang around for a bit. If you have more questions, I can't see the whole question field, weirdly. I'm only seeing a micro part of that. How found...
Hi, Chris. It's just Sonia here. You can take the question. Do you want me to read you a couple of questions? Because we've had another couple come
Oh,
in.
I can't see them. Sorry. I've seen one here. Have you found a company's use a specific method for searching or common
Yeah.
methods?
If you
Oh,
pull out, shall I read them to you?
please do. Oh, sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't realize there were questions.
No, that's all right. They've only just come in. So, Chris, can you search custom fields or limit results based on a custom field? An example might be use custom field for client partner and what matters returned where only where CP client partner is equals the custom field.
Well, yeah, well, that gets tricky. Again, it depends on what appears here. So if you've got things in a custom field, it should appear here down the left-hand side. Yeah, I'm not sure we can specifically search the back end. Yeah, I'm not. I'd have to look. I'd have to explore on that one. It can be a little bit trickier. It's knowing your data, what's in the custom fields, the formats, and exploring. So yeah, there's no quick answer. I'm sorry. Have you found companies? I can see one question. Weirdly, I can't see the others.
See,
So have companies use specific method for searching or common methods? No, it's about discussing with colleagues internally. Most of the best ideas I come up with come from users. They tell me things they do or tricks they found. So I think it's about people discussing these things internally. You know, what's the way you find best to find a kind of document? What keywords do you find are really useful? And they'll mention something you would never have considered. And I have to think every time, right, there's a few ways this could be done. What's the best way? And it's about experimenting. Again, we're ruined by Google. Google just it knows your context, you know, so it kind of tends to do what you want most of the time. We have to think outside the box sometimes and discuss with colleagues, I think. Are there any other questions I can't see for some reason?
no, that's it.
Okay. So that's all from me. Hang back, ask more questions if you want to. I hope you found some of that useful. Hopefully, please feedback. If not, we want to make these value for time and you know, informative as possible. So the next session, again, the video will come out. The next session in a few weeks will be on versioning. So again, we're looking at some tips and tricks and common questions, scenarios, and it would be ideal for people newer to versioning. If you're already a versioning expert, you probably know what you need to know. But again, it is something that people lack confidence in. So that will be in a few weeks' time. I think it was on the 21st of July. But thank you for joining. I hope you have a great day.